I miss this. The quiet, calm, solitude.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Woo-wee! Episode 3. The tension is really starting to build, and all of the small stories beginning to branch out are really making for an awesome season of Dexter New Blood. Before I get started, let me know your thoughts on this episode down in the comments. Do you think you know where this show is headed? Let me know your theories below. Also, I don't feel like I should have to say this, but I'll say it. You are on a recap video. If you haven't seen this episode yet and you don't want to be spoiled, probably should come back to this later. In this episode named Smoke Signals, we once again focus on the 3 main storylines that we talked about in the previous episode. But again, they are all becoming more intricate. So we're going to cover the investigation into Matt's disappearance, the Harrison situation, and the missing girls. After the recap, I will share my theories and where I think things are going and why certain characters are doing the things that they're doing. Okay, for the recap, we are first going to kick things off with the activities around Matt's disappearance. Things begin with Angela saying there's been a break in the case as they've uncovered footage of Matt's shooting the deer thanks to some reservation land management forest cameras. This builds quite a bit of tension as Dexter goes in to see the footage and kind of expects to be caught. And the cameras do show Dexter in the forest at the time of Matt's disappearance, but lucky for Dexter, these cameras only show heat signatures. So it's unclear to police that the man on camera is in fact Dexter. These findings have moved the case away from a missing persons situation to a criminal investigation. And this introduces a new crime scene investigator named Damien. Much to Dexter's amusement, Damien appears to be incredibly clumsy and unskilled. Dexter, claiming to be a fan of CSI shows, asks to tag along and follows Damien to the crime scene. Damien, proving to actually know what he's talking about, perfectly recounts the events that led to Matt's death. But he doesn't say for certain that Matt did die. It seems that everyone thinks that Matt fought off, it's hard to say. Fought off! I don't know why I said it with that accent. Fought off the unknown attacker and fled the area. At this point, Angela asks Kurt for his DNA so she can do a familial test on the blood that's found at the crime scene to see if it's a match to Kurt, which would tell them that it was actually Matt's blood. We learn that it is a match, and Angela informs Kurt that they are going to be performing a sweep of the entire area, including canvassing some caves outside of town. This is going to be important in my theories section later in the video. So Dexter learns that search dogs are coming in the morning, so he stays up all night, digging up Matt's remains, getting his hunting vest, going around spreading the scent of the hunting vest all over the crime scene, and hoping to lead the dogs back to where he planted the glove in the last episode. This appears to have worked because the search dogs come up empty-pawed. See what it's like empty-handed, but they're dogs, so they have paws. I'm not sure how big of a point this is going to be in the show, but a seemingly random girl shows up at the crime scene, claiming to be a citizen activist and wanting to help with the investigation. And we learn later in the episode this character's name is Molly Park, and she is a true crime podcaster who seems to have come to the area to cover this investigation for her show. And the whole Matt storyline in this episode starts to wrap up when Dexter is out looking for a place to hide his remains and thinks it's a good idea to go out to some old iron mines and see if there's a place to dump the remains there. Turns out that mine is a black bear cave, so he has to find another solution for Matt's remains. And after taking the white deer to the bonfire at the end of the episode, it clicks, hey, maybe I should just burn his remains. And we see at the end of the episode, Dexter takes the remains to a local incinerator, and we see Matt's ashes coming down on the town at the end of the show. Moving on to Harrison, this is a pretty eventful episode for him. He gets enrolled in school, takes a placement exam to see which grade he should place in, and the school faculty accuses him of cheating. They call Dexter to come down to the school and explain the situation, and as opposed to having his back, Dexter agrees that Harrison should take the exam over again. This irritates Harrison as he really wanted Dexter to have his back. The boys from the wrestling team see Harrison in the hallway and let him in on the fact that they are catfishing a fellow student named Ethan, and you can see that Harrison's really not a fan of this. And later in the episode, he chooses to have lunch with Ethan where he discloses to him that he's being catfished by these other kids, and he and Ethan create a gif of Zach doing very inappropriate things with a goat and send it back in the catfish message that's going on. This, of course, highly irritates Zach, and Zach attempts to attack Ethan, and Harrison jumps in the way and throat chokes Zach, and you're like, man, that's Dexter's kid. And this seems to really solidify a friendship between Harrison and Ethan. Hey, look at you. You have made it halfway through the video, which if you saw my last video, you would know that this means that you are a part of the halfway club. Still looking for a better name than that. If you've got something, let me know. Thanks for sticking around this long. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Dexter content. I do plan on doing a live stream or two on Dexter in the future, definitely when the show ends, so that we can all have a community conversation about this show. So to make sure you don't miss out on those live stream conversations, be sure to subscribe. Let's get back to the video. Harrison and Audrey are later seen driving around town talking about their relationships or lack thereof with their parents, and this seems to further develop and form the bond between these two characters. Audrey's car breaks down and she doesn't have cell service to get the parts needed to fix her car, so she sends Harrison up the road to get cell service. And while she's sitting there, we see a car pull up behind her, and I was convinced she's about to get taken. Turns out it's just Ed Olson coming up to offer help or have her wait in the car until Harrison comes back. Of course, Audrey's not a fan of this, and they have words over Ed Olson's business activities and his impact on the environment, and he eventually just leaves. Towards the end of the episode, Ethan FaceTimes Harrison and shows him some very disturbing drawings he's made of him basically killing the other boys at school. Harrison essentially doesn't react to these photos and almost seems to get enjoyment out of it, and we'll talk about that in the theories section coming up. After taking the deer back to the bonfire, Dexter apologizes to Harrison for not defending him at the school when he was accused of cheating, and this is when Dexter tells Harrison he has his back from now on, and they seem to be making progress in their relationship as Harrison calls Dexter dad for the first time. Much like the first two episodes, there's really not a lot of screen time for the missing girls situation. But what we got was pretty insane. We see the man that's holding this girl captive decide to let her free as he's suiting up to go hunting, and we see the girl making her best effort to escape, and this man steps out on what looks to be his back porch and takes her out with his gun. We then see her on what looks like a mortician's table, having her blood drained and her body presumably prepared to be stored somewhere. I think I know where. And at that, it is a good time to move into my theories. I'm going to kick my theories off talking about Harrison. I believe there's a lot of misdirection going on with him, as we've seen him shifting back and forth between some level of righteousness and a kid that might possess a dark passenger of his own. When he was looking at Ethan's drawings with that smirk on his face, I couldn't help but imagine that there was some internal dialogue going on there, much like we see with Dexter. But again, this may be a red herring, and Harrison may ultimately end up being more like Harry or Deb than he is Dexter. To counter my own point, one interesting thing that continues to get attention in this show is the death of Harrison's stepmother, Hannah, and that she died of cancer. I feel that if this weren't going to be a big deal, it wouldn't continue to come up episode after episode. In my last video, one commenter by the name of Billy Sartori theorizes that Harrison actually killed Hannah. Is it possible that Hannah didn't actually die of cancer and Harrison is really the one that killed her? Is Harrison planning a similar outcome for Dexter? It's unlikely, but possible. I like the theory. And I've seen many of you say that Audrey is going to be taken at some point, and the climax of this show is going to come as she's rescued by Dexter or Harrison or possibly both. I believe the scene in this episode where her car broke down and she's left alone and we see the car pull up behind her is possibly some foreshadowing into the fact that this is going to happen. It makes perfect sense to me, so I think you all are right. Speaking of the missing girls, I feel certain at this point that the man behind the mask is Kurt Caldwell. The eyes under the ski mask, the identical physique, this is Kurt. We got some big insights in this episode centered around Kurt, most of it coming at the end whenever Dexter finds him drunk outside a bar, celebrating the fact that Matt is alive and he just talked to him on the phone. He just FaceTimed him. But did he though? Is it possible he did FaceTime someone? Maybe somebody deep faked a FaceTime call? Maybe Harrison knows that Dexter killed Matt and wants to protect Dexter, and so he faked this call with Kurt. Possibly Matt's buddy with the scar on his face that's getting hush money from his dad wanted to keep that money flowing, so he faked the call. Personally, I don't think the call was faked because I don't think there was a call at all. I think Kurt is lying about this because he needs the search to stop before law enforcement stumbles onto something that actually links him to the missing girls. The most telling reason I believe this to be true true came on the call earlier in the episode between Angela and Kurt. Angela's explaining to Kurt that they're going to search everywhere, including some caves, and Kurt says, "The caves? You think he's that far out?" I believe Kurt hides the bodies of the girls that he kills in those caves, and it's at this moment he realizes he's got to do something to stop this search so that he doesn't get caught. He seems to love his son and would like to get answers into his disappearance, but he must ultimately protect himself from being identified as the man behind the missing girls. That's it for episode 3. Again, meet me down in the comments, let me know your thoughts, and we'll see you after episode 4.